Noiseworks and Touch on ABC Radio Brisbane and Queensland. Before we get into the hot takes, one of the topics last week in hot takes was curbside cleanup. And you might recall the magician Christopher Wayne, not a fan, just mentioning that if you're in Hawthorn, Hemmant or Lytton, it is curbside cleanup week for you coming up. So get it out on your curb by tomorrow afternoon. But having said that, just also bear in mind the wind that is forecast. And the cyclone hanging off the coast. So just be careful to not put things out that might turn into missiles. 11 minutes past 9. It's the hot takes. It's the stories of the day. It's the issues of the week. And this week with Paralympian and, what is chocolatier the right word? Gerrard Gosens.
Yeah,
Hello.
chocolatier, yeah.
Chocolatier. And criminologist from Griffith University, Associate Professor D. Harris. Danielle D. Harris, welcome.
Hello.
Thank you both for coming in. Before we get into the stories of the week, and by the way, we're not going to talk about Trump versus Zelensky versus JD Vance. I feel I've been talking about it for over 3 hours.
Excellent.
So this is going to be a White House free zone for the next 20 minutes. It is safe to keep listening. Before we get into the other stories of the week, though, Gerrard, you continue to embark on adventure swims. Rottnest Island last week. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was an interesting swim. It was from Cottesloe over to Rottnest Island. It was a massive swell towards the end of the swim, and in actual fact, 2 boats actually sunk during the event. So it was a pretty epic event. There's over 2,000 swimmers who do both solo, 500 soloists, and then sort of 1,500 worth of teams. But that was more of a training event for me. I'm heading over to Manhattan Island in July. It's called the 20 Bridges Swim, which is a 50-kilometre swim around Manhattan Island.
Wow.
In a row, 50 kilometres in a row.
Yes.
Well, the good thing about it, I'm actually doing it at night. So
That's not a good thing.
Well, it's good for me because it doesn't really worry me. But I think it's more about obviously the coolness and getting around the bridges.
Yeah, Gerard's done a lot of these swims,
Yes.
long swims and the mountain climbing and all this sort of stuff. Well, best of luck with that. And Dee, what have you been up to? Something also that involves America?
Yes, quite a segue. I interviewed almost 100 men in the US a few years ago who had been convicted of sexual offences, and then a colleague replicated that study with a sample in Norway, and we could expect Norway and the US to be at opposite ends of the penological continuum. So I'm about to look into what we do here in Queensland and what are the impacts, the unintended consequences on the non-offending family members of people that are subject to that legislation.
So is it, I'm just going to try and translate, if I can, a little bit of that or demonstrate that maybe
Saturday.
I understood some of those long words. So you're looking at reoffending?
Yeah.
And how and the amount of reoffending in the two countries as a sort of comparison?
Yes,
Right.
and the laws are really different in the US. So in the US, they're very restrictive, and then in Norway, they're quite forgiving, and, prison is a completely different experience, and there's a waiting list. So if it's full, they don't build another prison. They just wait until there's a spot for you.
Wow.
So you go back to your house.
Oh, wow.
And then they call you when there's a bed.
And then you do your
basically.
time.
And then you do your time.
And
yeah.
I'm going to guess that the interesting point that you're going to head to here is that the reoffending rates are higher in the States.
The reoffending rates are higher in the States, but there's interesting reasons why that people reoffend in both countries, and we've talked to them about their explanations, and it does seem to be that in America there's sort of too much, there's too many restrictions, and they're set up to fail because of all of the community notification and residence restrictions and that sort of thing. And in Norway, they feel like they weren't given enough. They were given too little treatment. So it was a sort of laissez-faire to a fault.
Wow.
Yeah, so Queensland might be somewhere in the middle. We don't know, but
Well, we've got a
watch
new
this
government
space.
and a government that's talking about a sex offender register, so it's all very, very timely.
Don't get me started on that.
Well, we have heard from you in the past on that. Okay, let's move on to, unless, Gerrard, you want to jump in on the recidivism of sex offenders.
No, I'll
Pass?
yeah.
We'll leave the ocean swimming to you.
She deals with people behind bars. I make bars.
Yeah, very good. And we're out. I don't think we're going to...
That's the
Yeah,
top.
that's it. Yeah. Let's start off with swimming, and I will, Gerrard Gosens, as our swimmer here, ask you first about this. This is about the Olympics and the Paralympics in 32. Now, Duncan Armstrong says he would like to see the pool for 2032 dropped into Lang Park or Suncorp Stadium, where you could have, the paper today says something like 35,000 spectators. The Gold Coast Mayor Tom Tate says the Aquatic Centre at Southport, which hosted the Com Games in 2018, can host the 2032 swimming events. We get to find out March 25 where the stadiums are going to be. But what do you think about Lang Park for the swimming, Gerrard?
I think we need something that is actually purpose-built, and reason being is because Chandler's old and needs a lot of restoration in the sense of facilities. We need something that is going to be central for, obviously, people here in Brisbane to come to. So for me, I think it's, look, we're sort of developing the infrastructure of both the stadium and also, obviously, swimming and other venues. I think it's now time to pull out the wallet and really invest in a future for our athletes, and having a temporary, structure at Lang Park isn't really going to cut it.
And and like the Brisbane Arena idea, which is above Roma Street, that's also a drop-in swimming pool. So after the games, it disappears, and we're left with Chandler again, aren't we?
Yeah.
I think the other suggestion that's been made is where the Centenary Pool is on Gregory Terrace, that we actually sort of turn that into a new big all singing or dancing legacy aquatic centre.
Yeah, that has legs, obviously, because transportation and its proximity to the city. And I think also too, though, that its ability to provide spectators, I think you have to do quite a bit of work around that.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to get 35,000 people there. No. And that becomes a money thing in terms of ticket sales at the Olympics. Dee, where would you like to see the swimming?
Look, I did the maths. And I don't usually do maths on a Friday night, but I did. And I'm feeling now like maybe I haven't really prepared, because I have only overseen the building of one pool. But I thought that Lang Park was going to be amazing because it's a one-stop shop for efficiency. I've done the maths. You can get 28 lanes. So no longer will we need to watch heat after heat after heat with 8 lanes. We can have 28 people at once. Every race is a final. The 1,500 metres is 15 laps, not 30 laps. I say yes.
Wow. That is thinking, isn't it, Gerrard? This smile started to grow on your face as it dawned on you what she was going on about.
Evidently,
that.
I haven't really. I thought I had really thought about this really, really well, but maybe there are things that I have not considered.
Yeah, look, I appreciate obviously Tom's views on the aquatic centre on the Gold Coast, but for people here in Brisbane, obviously with our growing population, it's we need the infrastructure. Chandler is like I was actually devastated when they suggested QE2 Stadium as the athletic stadium, because I've competed there for many a decade and it's well past its use-by date. There's no chance that we could ever host a stadium there for transport, for a whole range of various reasons, backing onto Griffith University. But yeah, we need a new pool.
Are you confident that we're going to pull this Olympics off, Gerrard, and Paralympics?
Yeah, look, we obviously, I think that it's been great that we've got the review being handed down in the next couple of weeks, and
another review though.
Yeah, look, and that comes down to obviously what were the real plans behind those reviews, and where we're seeking funding. But I think now it's a great chance to really put the foot down, and I think where we're going to begin is very similar to what Sydney had in their lead-up time. So we have the time. It's just now moving.
7 years is what Sydney had, and that's almost what we're looking at, although it's hard to get builders at the moment. And I don't mean that flippantly. Like it's a different 7 years to what Sydney had. Dee, what's your excitement level and confidence level that Brisbane can pull off these games?
Yeah, I don't know that I'm confident because politicians are involved, but I have to be honest. I think I remember being a bit sort of uninterested in the Sydney Games, but now I have to say that I'm this time around, I'm looking at it through the eyes of my daughter, who is obsessed with competing in the rock climbing, and a nephew who wants to win gold for the Boomers, and another nephew who will hopefully play Paralympic golf. And I mean, as a proud Griffith University person, if our university was a standalone country, it would have come 11th in the medal tally. We had 38 competitors who won 24 medals. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm sort of feeling positive about it, which is new for me.
They're goosebumpy reasons you've just given. All those people that you know that might be competing. It's a beautiful thing. Let's stay with sport momentarily and the NRL in Vegas this weekend. Just quickly on this one, whether you think it's a good idea starting the season in Vegas. It's not easy for people to go to Vegas to watch their favourite teams this weekend. does it really promote rugby league to America? Do we really benefit
I'm
from
thrilled.
this? Yes?
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And as far as I'm concerned, they can keep the NRL.
You just don't come back, Panthers and
No,
Warriors and
I don't
Canberra,
know what
et cetera.
Panthers are animals in. I don't even know where. No.
Okay, what about you?
I think it's a good move because I think it's a great chance to grow the sport. As you can see, obviously they're bringing the gridiron to Australia next year, I think it is. So it's about the growth of the sport, and obviously from a commercial perspective, it's going to grow financially, and the players will benefit as well. The clubs will benefit as well.
Let's move on from sport. Gerrard Gosens is here, Paralympian, and Dee Harris, who is a criminologist at Griffith University, back home. And Moreton Bay City Council this week has banned people from sleeping on public land. Now, this really, you got to go back to just before Christmas, and the council there banned rough sleepers from having their pets with them. Now, this week, they've said, no, that's it. And they're citing safety and they're citing behaviour as the reasons. Dee, I'll come to you on this one first. Is council right? Are you comfortable with council imposing this sort of ban, or is there a better way to approach homelessness?
No, the council is wrong. This is the first attempt that I'm aware of by any council in Australia to criminalise homelessness. Homelessness is not a crime. A crime is defined by its intent to cause harm, and to be found guilty of it, you need to show malice and deliberation and intent, and that's not what is happening here. The answer is that there's not enough public housing. I think we need to be aware that we're in the middle of a housing crisis and a cost of living crisis, and we shouldn't be making harder the lives of people who are already having a hard time.
What do you think, Gerrard? It's a tricky one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And look, I'm somewhat with Moreton City Council because I saw the cleanup that was required at one of those particular venues or sites where they were moved on. It was extraordinary, the level of waste and danger and the safety for other local residents. So, look, it's about that partnership. And right now, I think it's that lack of communication between each of the stakeholders, whether it be the state government to some of the NFPs through to all those stakeholders who are involved in the homelessness sort of scenario. But for me, it's about enforcing that move. And I think at times they also need to be proactive in how they are going to take on their own responsibilities.
They've got to, it's not somewhere you'd choose to live, is it? A park with other rough sleepers. Like the council cites safety as one of its reasons. And you just, like, I don't want to sort of, tarnish all rough sleepers or tar them with the one brush, but it's not going to be the safest place to set up camp with your family. Yeah. And so from that point of view, you can see council's concern and what they're trying to prevent from happening. Sarah?
I think
Spencer, I have a cafe in the city, and I have homeless people sleep out the front of my cafe in the centre of the city, and we have to move them on every morning. Now, that's more about the safety of my staff who come in there at 4 a.m. and 5 a.m, open up. So, yeah, there is a level of safety there for my staff as well as people within the city as well. So it's not just out there in the suburbs, it's also within the city as well.
There's a text here from Peter of Burpengary, sort of linking the two things we've been talking about, suggesting maybe the Olympics is a big diversion. He says, think of the athletes while thousands are living in their cars. Who was it that said, give them bread and circuses? And on the Centenary Pool, Debbie of Brisbane says, no, so much building history has been lost or modified. Centenary Pool is legendary. Please leave it alone as it is. 9:24, this is Hot Takes on 612 ABC Brisbane. I'm Spencer Howson. Gerrard Gosens, Paralympian, is here, and Dr. Dee Harris from Griffith University, criminologist. We're talking about some of the stories of the day and the issues of the week. New research has revealed that by the end of this year, 39% of Australian employers will have mandated everyone being back in the office 5 days a week. That's up from 36% last year. So we're sort of getting back from the COVID working from home thing. Gerrard, how do you see working from home?
I look, as a small business owner and as a cafe owner, I'm going, yay, because I need them back.
Well, you wouldn't be able to. You can't have a barista that's working from home three days a week.
No, but as in people in the city.
I see what you mean.
Like the vacant buildings. It was there was a times there where you could look. I could walk up the Queen Street Mall with my eyes closed, not in being totally blind, and not run into anybody because it was that desolate. And I know that, for example, I have friends who work in various multinationals who are now required to go back to work, and it really has brought about a bigger spirit within and culture within the actual city. People now going to cafes for lunch and grabbing a coffee. So Look, I appreciate obviously people staying at home. It lessens the traffic, on the roads. But certainly there is a need to have people within our cities.
What do you think, Dee? You would do quite a bit of working from home as an academic.
Yeah, I think it depends on the job and it depends on the person. I think in those sort of knowledge production jobs like mine, when I can do work from home, there are some days where I get a lot more done if I'm at home, and there are some days where it just really is valuable to meet with people in person. I think most people work harder and smarter when they're treated like human beings and given agency to use their time in the way that best suits them. So I think flexibility is important.
But can everyone be trusted? Like, bosses don't necessarily trust that you're going to be working harder on the days when you're at home.
Well, I guess I'm internally motivated, so
You are, yes.
I have a worry there too with our youth, Spencer, because I think it's really important to have those face-to-face conversations. We can hide behind text messages and Instagram messages and all the various forms of communication platforms. And I really think they need to have that resilience of actually getting dressed, having breakfast, going to work, and having that responsibility of actually working with their fellow peers and communicating over the next to the water cooler or going out for lunch, and just having that community relationship and building that rapport with people. Whereas because at home it's type a message, off it goes, sight unseen. And that's where I think also for our development as a country, from that working ethic, it's good to be there face to face.
Well, what you miss out on when you're working from home is casual learning, I think is the term. So you can be in the office and you go, how do you, what does Control C again? What does that do? And someone just overhears you and they go, yeah, that's copy. Yeah. Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
That's just one little example.
Or the soft skills that I see it in my students, students that did year 12 during COVID, and then students that did year 10 during COVID, and students that, we've seen them come through in the last few years, and there is a decline in interpersonal skills and, knowing to knock on a door before you enter it, and knowing to make eye contact. And like we had in the class, one of the classes that I teach a few years ago, we were literally teaching how to shake hands. And then the following year, we were literally saying, don't touch anybody. So there's been a real shift.
Yes. So it's okay for us. We already learned those skills pre-COVID, but as Gerrard says, it's that next generation coming through. Some good points there. My 25-year-old son had something happen to him this week that I love, and I need to get your opinion on this. He was on a bus heading into the city. It was 3:15 in the afternoon. The bus is absolutely chockers with school kids. He described them as smelly school kids in their sports gear. I wasn't there. I wouldn't say that. Anyway, the bell goes. Like one of them hits the button. This just brings back memories. This used to happen all the time. The bell goes. The driver pulls over at the next bus stop. No one gets off. He turns off the engine, stands up and says, I'm not moving until someone gets off. And then one of the kids gets off. Now, I'm worried that kid was bullied off or whatever, but maybe it was the culprit who went, okay, it was me, I'll get off the bus. Did the bus driver do the right thing? Should he have just shrugged it off and kept driving? Gerrard? Of all the big topics in the world, this is the one. This is the important one. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe he could have stopped and shrugged it off. I think if it had have gone maybe 2 more times, sure, I can appreciate him then stopping.
We don't know how many times it happened to that driver on that day or that week. That's the problem.
That's right. But if it had happened in a series, because when I used to travel from work out to University of Queensland, and I was stunned, Spencer, how many times or how many bus stops that were only like maybe 100 metres apart. Like, why are they so close together, right? So if it was happening 2 or 3 times along that particular journey, sure, I could appreciate it. But if it's just the once, like as a blind person, sometimes I've actually accidentally gone, oh, damn it, I've actually hit the buzzer and not meaning to.
Yeah.
Could have been something like that.
And I've seen adults on polite, buses with lots of polite passengers on not smelly school kids do that and go, sorry, driver, next one, or something like that.
Especially in a foreign place. And then I think if I've done it and I've just said, oh my God, I'm sorry, that was me. And I think if I had been on the bus in this circumstance, I would have done the same thing. I would have just said, oh, I think it was an accident.
Yeah, but it wasn't, was it? It was a school kid hitting the button.
Maybe it was an accident.
And then next thing, from going to your expertise, Dee Harris, the kid's thrown off the bus.
Oh, yeah. See, I just they needed some adult to say, "I'm sorry, that was an accident. Move on. Everything's fine."
So if the okay, so
I would've
my
covered for
son could have taken the fall. The 25-year-old could have
he
actually
said, "Sorry, driver."
It was me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, let's finish on a fun one. I'm talking Eurovision. Australia's entry in Eurovision has been revealed. Co-written by Brisbane band Shepherd. The song is called Milkshake Man by Gojo. Here's just a little of it.
Come and take a sip from my special cup. I heard that you could use a